Recording begins. Ambient sound. Stone passage. The hum is low and directional. Footsteps already in motion. This is recording 19. I'm in the southern corridor below the node. I'm already moving. The decision was made at the end of the last recording, and I'm not revisiting it. The scuff marks continue. The corridor is darker than the passage from the stairwell. The flashlight carries about 10 feet before the darkness closes around it. The walls are close, stone, unfinished, the same hand-dressed surface as the deeper stairs. The floor continues the worn center path. Every step I take lands in the same groove worn by whoever came before me. Over however many years this passage has been in use, the hum is no longer ambient. It has a direction. It's coming from ahead, from somewhere south, and it's stronger than it was at the node. Not louder in the way a sound gets louder as you approach a speaker. More present. The way pressure changes as you descend. It's in the floor and the walls simultaneously, and it increases with each step in a way that feels like proximity to a source rather than volume. I'm following something I can't see and something I can't fully hear. Scene 2. Evidence. The first sign. Dust. The passage floor is old stone, and old stone in a closed passage accumulates a fine layer of particulate over time. The center path is worn clean from foot traffic, but the edges carry dust. In the beam of the flashlight, on the left edge of the passage about 20 feet ahead, a disturbance. The dust has been displaced recently. A footprint, or the edge of one, where someone stepped slightly wide of the worn center path. I'm crouching to look at it. The disturbance is fresh. The dust at the edges of the displacement is still settling. Barely, but I can see the movement in the flashlight beam if I hold it steady. This was made minutes ago, not hours. The other investigator is not far ahead. I'm moderating my pace. Moving faster brings me closer, but it also makes more noise. The passage carries sound. I can hear my own footsteps reflected off the walls. If I can hear mine, they can hear theirs. And if the sound is reflecting, they can hear mine. They already know I'm here. Second sign, a catalog card. On the floor, left side of the passage, leaning against the base of the wall. Not placed the way the card at the entrance to the passage was placed. Centered, deliberate. This one is propped against the wall at an angle, as if it was set down quickly by someone who was moving and didn't stop fully. I'm picking it up. Under subject, southern node, approach confirmed. Under status, active passage. Under notes, one line, 2, that's all, one word, 2. As in 2 investigators now in the southern passage. They know I'm behind them. They left this card as acknowledgement, not a warning, not a direction, just a count, a record in the archive's own language that the condition is being met. 2 registered investigators moving toward the same point. The question the letter raised and I couldn't answer at the node, whether the unknown investigator could fulfill the condition instead of Hannah. This card suggests they believe it's already being fulfilled. They're counting themselves and me as the required pair. I'm not certain they're right, but I'm continuing. Scene 3. Architecture shifts. The corridor changes. The dressed stone gives way over the next 30 feet to something rawer. The walls become irregular, the surface uneven, the cuts rougher. This isn't construction. This is excavation. Someone cleared this passage from existing rock rather than building it. The ceiling drops by several inches over a short distance and then stabilizes at a height that requires me to keep my head slightly forward, chin toward chest. The passage is also curving. Gradually, barely perceptible at first, but after 50 feet the direction has shifted. I'm no longer moving due south. The curve is pulling me southwest, toward the point 0 position on the node map. The hum has changed character again. At the node it was a sustained resonance. In the straight passage it was directional. Now it's rhythmic. Not the cycling fluctuation of the second floor, something slower. A pulse, almost. Long intervals between the peaks. Whatever is producing it is large or deep or both. The flashlight catches something on the wall. Not cut in. Not the familiar crescent and number format of the markers. Something drawn, Charcoal or chalk, thick lines, old. A diagram of some kind. I'm stopping to look. Two circles concentric. Inside the inner circle, a crescent. Outside the outer circle, four lines radiating outward at equal intervals, north, south, east, west. Below the diagram, small text, the ink old enough that it's difficult to read. I can make out three words: network, passage, convergence. This isn't a marker. This is documentation. Someone drew this here, in this passage, as a record of what they understood about the system. The concentric circles are the node structure. The inner point is what I've been calling point 0, and the outer ring is the southern node. The radiating lines are the four corridors. Convergence. They understood what this place is. They knew the system before I found it. The charcoal is old. Decades. Whoever drew this was in this passage long before Hannah began her investigation, long before I arrived. They understood the concentric structure and documented it on the wall, in a language simple enough to read without context. I'm thinking about what it means that someone mapped this from inside the system. You don't draw a diagram of a place you're standing in unless you understand the place as a whole, unless you've seen enough of it to reduce it to a schematic. The concentric circles aren't the view from inside the passage. They're the view from outside the system, looking at it structurally. This person had distance on the archive, enough distance to understand what they were inside, and then they came back into the passage and drew it on the wall. Why draw it here, in the approach corridor, unless you expected someone else to find it? Unless you were leaving it for the investigator who came next. The same logic Hannah used with the ledger, the same infrastructure building for someone you haven't met. This is not the only thing they left here. I'm moving the flashlight slowly along the wall below the diagram. More text, smaller, harder to read. I'm getting close, a name, or part of one. The first letter is clear. The rest has faded or been obscured by the stone itself, the surface having absorbed the charcoal unevenly over time. The first letter is the same as the initial on the redacted card upstairs. The card that read 1953, 1959, closed. I'm standing in a passage drawn on by someone whose name was removed from the archive's own record. Scene 4, archive reaction. Something changes in the passage. The pulse in the hum shortens. The interval between peaks contracts, the rhythm accelerating slightly. Not dramatically. I might not have noticed it if I hadn't been listening carefully since the node, but it's measurable. The system is responding to something. Two investigators in the passage, both moving toward the same point. The archive is reacting to convergence. A card. On the wall this time, not on the floor. Pressed flat against the stone at eye level, held there by nothing I can see. No adhesive, no crack to tuck it into. Just a card flat against the wall as if the stone is holding it. I'm taking it. Under subject, convergence, sequence active. Under status, proceeding. Under notes, blank. The archive is documenting the approach in real time, filing the convergence as it happens. Two investigators registered, both in sequence, both in the approach passage. The system is running the protocol. Scene 5. The rule realization I'm reciting the letter from the locked drawer as I walk. Not out loud, in my head. I've read it enough times that I have it accurately. Both of you arriving is required. One alone is not sufficient. Both. Not Hannah and I specifically. Not two named individuals. Both. A quantity. Two registered investigators completing the sequence and arriving at the convergence point together, or in proximity, or in whatever configuration the system requires. The letter was written by whoever left the key, which, according to Hannah's ledger, was Hannah herself. She wrote it for whoever found the key, for me specifically, because my name was already in the map margin. She designed the handoff around me arriving after her. But there's a gap between what Hannah intended and what the archive requires. Hannah designed the approach for two specific people, herself and whoever came next. The archive may not make that distinction. The archive registered me when I completed step 3. It registered the unknown investigator the same way. The system responded to both of us, entering the convergence sequence without apparent preference for which two we are. The distinction that matters to Hannah may not matter to the system. But the system is older than Hannah. The diagram on the wall is decades old. The worn path under my feet was made by more investigators than Hannah and I account for. The archive has been running this protocol, 2 investigators, convergence arrival, for longer than either of us has been involved. Previous pairs have reached this point. Some closed, one erased. None of that stopped the system from running. And right now, in this passage, the system has 2 registered investigators approaching the convergence point. Whether that's the right 2, whether Hannah's design and the archive's requirement are the same thing, I don't know. But the archive is documenting it as if the condition is being met. The card said, proceeding. The passage widens. Scene 6, threshold chamber. It's not a room, it's an expansion. The corridor opens into a circular space, stone walls curving around a central area perhaps 15 feet across. The ceiling rises here, the pressure of the low passage releasing into something that feels almost open by comparison. The hum is loudest here, all 4 walls vibrating at the same frequency simultaneously, the pulse slow and deep, the source clearly below the floor or inside the walls themselves. In the center of the chamber floor, a crescent, not numbered, just the mark, larger than any of the others, cut deep into the stone. Around it at equal intervals 4 smaller marks, not symbols I recognize, not the shapes from the node map. On the far side of the chamber, a corridor continues, south and west. Point 0 is through there. I'm standing at the edge of the circular space, and someone is already inside it. Scene 7. The encounter. They are standing at the far edge of the chamber between me and the corridor that leads south. I can't determine height clearly. The darkness behind them makes scale difficult to read. The flashlight reaches them but doesn't fully illuminate. I can see the shape of a figure, the suggestion of clothing, the stillness of someone who has been standing in one position for longer than a person stands comfortably. The posture is not tense, not guarded, just still. The way something is still when it has been still for a very long time. The light isn't reaching their face. I'm not moving. They're not moving. The hum fills the space between us, the pulse slow and even, the chamber vibrating around both of us. I'm looking at what I can see. The clothing, the cut of it is wrong. Not wrong in a way I can immediately articulate. The fabric, the shape of the collar, the way the coat sits, it belongs to a different decade. Not vintage in the way old clothes look when someone chooses to wear them. Old in the way things look when they've been worn continuously for a long time, and the style was set at the point they were acquired. This person has been wearing the same coat for decades. The posture doesn't shift. No acknowledgement of my presence, no movement toward or away. The figure stands at the far edge of the chamber, and the corridor to point 0 is directly behind them. I'm looking at the hands, still, not gripping anything, not at their sides in the way a person stands at rest, lower than that, slightly forward. The position of someone who has been waiting so long that waiting has become the default state of the body. I'm trying to find a reference point for what I'm looking at, and I can't locate one. The archive has shown me things that were wrong in specific ways. Documents that changed, records that contradicted themselves, a building that reconfigured. Those were informational disturbances. This is different. This is a person standing in a stone chamber below a building, and the wrongness is not in the information, it's in the duration, the coat, the posture, the quality of stillness that belongs to something that has been here not for hours or days but for a span of time. The mind resists calculating. The upstairs slot, 1953-1959, closed, 6 years recorded, then the name removed, the record sealed. But the record being closed doesn't mean the investigation ended. The archive closes the file. It doesn't necessarily release what the file contained. I'm scanning for any detail that contradicts what I'm concluding. The posture, the coat, the hands, the absolute absence of the fidgeting, the small adjustments, the constant minor motion of a living person who has been standing for more than a few minutes. Something about the posture, the patience of it, the length of it. Hannah's notes had that quality, that deliberateness. But this isn't Hannah's posture. I've seen Hannah move through a dark building. She was purposeful, directional. This figure is not moving toward anything. They are simply present. As if presence itself is the activity. As if whatever forward motion they had, whatever investigation, whatever sequence they were following, resolved into this, into standing here, between the threshold chamber and point zero, the clothing, the stillness, the quality of waiting that goes beyond hours or days. This is not Hannah Morrison, I'm going to speak. Your record was removed in 1959. It was.